Hi everyone, this is Counseling 4000, Chapter 15, the first interview. So in the previous chapter, we talked a little bit about that person calling in to receive services on the phone and then maybe taking a note and then sending out a verification of an appointment. Now, this chapter is going to talk about what happens when that client comes in for that first meeting. You have spoken to the person by phone or phone intake person has. You have arranged for the person to come into the office for an interview, first interview. And even if this person has been a client before, you treat them like it was a closed case and this is actually a new case. Establishing the following things during your first interview. Strengths, including external support systems, which means like family and friends or workplace and stuff like that. Talents, successes, capabilities, and positive attitudes and events the person defines as a success. You also want to point out or pay attention to weaknesses, including gaps in the external support system. So let's say if they don't have any friends or family, how are they getting help or are they getting any support at all? Lack of experience of information. So let's say that maybe this person doesn't know anything about, you know, let's say if they are going in there for alcoholism, they don't really know much about rehab. Okay. Negative attitudes, events the person defines as failures, also current problems that causes the individual to seek help. So what is the motivation that made them decide to go receive services? Is it because they lost their children? Is it because they lost their job? It depends on what you want to find out. The potential problems that arise from this situation, and then also a sense of who this person is. So kind of like, the personality of this person after you talk to them for a little bit. This is your role, 3 tasks to accomplish during the first interview. The first one is to listen and convey an accurate understanding of clients' perceptions about themselves and their problems. Does not mean you agree with them, but that you heard them accurately. Okay, so they might see the world in a very specific way because of their culture or their personal experiences and stuff like that. So you want to record and let us know as the reader, the one who's going to review this case and stuff like that, who this person is. 2, formulate a professional understanding of what it is that the individual is experiencing and what this person will need while being serviced by your agency. So what that is saying is basically write it out in a way where, because of your trained professionalism, exactly what's going on. Okay. And then 3, establish rapport, which basically means like a good speaking and working relationship with clients so that they feel comfortable with you and with your agency. Some will never warm up, but most will do. Because if you offer help and you are giving off good vibes and positive vibes, helpful vibes, usually they're going to relax and say, you know what, you are a good person, so I'm going to work with you. Okay, so that's really important for you, even if they're not very trusting of a person. That they still will be able to maybe believe in you because of your performance and your public appearance and stuff like that. The client's understanding. Most clients coming into your agency recognize the need for help, which is true. That's the reason why they called and said, hey, I need services, right? Some are mandated, which means that they're required to, or required to go to or face jail time or permanent removal of their children. So basically it means that you either do this or you lose something, which is like your children or you go to jail. For this situation, you may face some hostility. You need to address this first and build on that rapport. So you can say, hey, I noticed that you're mandated to be here, and that means that, you are maybe at risk of losing something, your children or your freedom, and you have to go to jail. So I want to hear how you feel about the fact that you're mandated, okay? And stuff like that, and let them explain how they feel about it. Maybe they're really frustrated, or maybe they just don't understand what services you're going to provide. So they're apprehensive, they're kind of mean or whatever, is because they don't understand actually what you're going to do. A lot of people have negative ideas about what counseling is, what social workers are, because usually when you hear about social workers, it's like, someone is children is being taken away. So they have a negative connotation to what social worker is, and not understanding that's about helping a person become a more positive, helpful citizen in the society. The case manager needs to be able to reflect back those feels of anger or frustration or annoyance. So as a caseworker, when you're listening to them, you have to be able to reflect back and say, you know what, I understand. You feel really frustrated because you might be losing your children, and stuff like that. So you have to be able to bond with them and understand that client. And to be able to bond, you do need to understand. Preparing for the first interview, if you did not complete the phone interview, you should review it before the client arrives. So if someone else filled it out, you need to read it before you meet them. You don't want to ask the silly questions again and again, because what happens is then they're going, well, I already told you all this stuff. Why do I need to say it again, right? Ask yourself, what more should I know about this person's difficulties? What details need to be clarified? If that person who wrote the note had something that you were not 100% clear on, you would want to then say, oh, I noticed that you had said this. Would you mind clarifying what you meant by this? And then 3, where are the particular gaps in the information that need to be filled in? Okay, are there any other additional information that maybe the person did not ask or did not feel was that important to write, but you would like to know? If this was a prior client at the agency, read past records to fill out the picture of this person. Look at the medical difficulties, possible current medications that they're using. And the reason why is because medication has side effects. And so some of them could be depression, it could be weight gain, and then also other things like that. So you want to be aware of those things so that you know it's not necessarily a specific problem, it's actually a side effect of the medication, or whether or not the medication is even working at all. Remember, this information was collected by a person in a way that others saw that person. So the information may not be whole or entirely accurate. Let's say that the previous person really hated this person, and so when they wrote everything, it was written in a negative way. So you don't want to then perceive that person in a negative way just because that previous person did. You want to have a fresh approach to it, but you want to read through and just make sure that if you have any questions, to clarify it with the client when they're speaking to you. Your office. Is it a place in which you would feel comfortable while confiding in another person? So look at the office around you. Is it warm and comfortable? Is it utilitarian, which means useful? Are there comfortable chairs? Is it a free or harsh of lighting? Harsh lighting would be like direct spotlights or anything like that. Are their walls attractive? You know, are the walls like full of holes and looks really cruddy and stuff like that? So you want to pay attention to your office, because a person might come in and go, ooh, this feels good, this feels comfortable, I feel safe. Whereas like something that's completely all white and scary and very bare, it's gonna make the person maybe feel like they're going to be interrogated like at a police station or something like that. So definitely some people will have a more comfy, cozy one with like positive messages, and others might not. It really does depend. So I want you to think about that, that other people are going to pay attention to your office as well and how you decorate it. Probably not the best to have personal pictures sitting about, because you cannot be sure how your clients will view these or what meaning they might find in them. Your happy childhood could represent their child that was lost in a custody battle or issue. And then it can create a barrier, because that person seeing that little child gets reminded every time, and then they get sad or upset. So something like that you might want to reconsider. No large pieces of furniture between you and the client when you guys are talking. Your chair should not be more comfortable than theirs, because that shows a disparity in status or a difference in status. So if you're going to have a nice comfortable chair, your client also needs to sit in the exact same type of comfortable chair as well. Because if they're sitting on a fold-out chair and then you're sitting in a nice cushy chair, it already shows that you are more important than they are, but really you're supposed to pay attention to them and to value them, right? So you both should sit in similar chairs. Most clients coming in are not violent, so don't be scared. General rule is you should always be positioned closest to the door in case of an emergency. So you want to sit next to the door if possible, or for some offices, you might have a panic button that you can press. So that is another place where you can also sit as well. That is something you would want to talk to with your supervisor or your new boss at the new place that you're working at. So let's talk about when you're going to meet your client. Number 1, begin by going to the waiting room to meet your clients. Do not make them find their way through the halls of your office. So actually go out and say, hi, may I speak to Brian, or whatever. 2, greet adults, particularly older adults, with their title. Hello, Mrs. James. Good morning, Mr. Thomas. It is rude to call an older person you are meeting for the first time by just Mary or George. This is something that I actually will say it depends, because now we know that sometimes people will not be able to change their name, but they might be transgender or non-binary, and they don't actually prefer these gender titles. So you can just say, may I speak to James, please? And that's good enough for most people. And then afterwards, once you go in and they have talked about it, then you can start proceed by calling them by their Mr. or Mrs. or Miss, their preferred title if they require to do so or request to do so. Number 3, introduce yourself as Ms., Mr., or Mrs., or say, hello, my name is Jim Pallam. Do not say, hi, I'm Jim, or hello, my name is Jim. You should say in a polite way, hello, my name is Jim Pallam, so they know exactly who you are. They know your first name and your last name. They don't have to ask those questions. Because of course you are the person who knows more about them, and they're going to be a little, awkward and scared. So you might as well be formal but comfortable and friendly with them. 4, make a mental note of your first impressions. How do the individuals respond to your greeting? What do they say first? How do they look? Okay, because sometimes, again, when it comes to people who are trans or gender nonconforming, if you address them by their dead name or their, wrong gender title, that could turn off that person. This is why I was telling you about that before. 5, how do people react to your office? Do they seem comfortable? Do they appear to feel awkward? Do they readily sit down or wait to be invited to do so? So those are things that you want to pay attention to. And then 6, if people start talking, show interest in what they are saying. Often the first things people tell you will hold the most significance. So once you have them seated and they start talking, you have to pay attention. You cannot think about how to respond to that person or whatever. You must pay attention to what they're saying, because when you do that, you are showing them that you're respecting them and that you know that they are important at this moment and you're there to work with them. 7, if people ask your credentials, tell them about these matter-of-factly. It is part of informed consent for people to know who is seeing them. There is no need for you to sound defensive. Do not go into personal details about yourself, however. If a person insists on knowing if you have ever had children, if you are married, or if you're old enough to know how to help her or him, point out respectfully that the purpose of her visit is to understand the issue and problem she is experiencing. Okay, so if someone asks me what my degrees are, I would say I have a PhD in this, or I am currently getting my PhD in this, blah, blah, blah. I have a master's in rehabilitation counseling at, Cal State LA or whatever, and then just state that those things matter-of-factly, okay? You don't have to try and show off and say, oh, I got a 4.0 or anything like that. You just want to let them know, because if they're just curious to get to know you, and this is how they do it, okay? And also 8, describe the agency and explain its purposes to clients who are unclear about it. Some individuals come to case management unit and expect to see a doctor or a psychologist. Give information about the types of professionals that staff your agency and what they do. So something like this, they might have been mandated, so they are just told to show up at this place. They don't really know what's going on. So it's your job, your duty to inform them and let them know, hi, this is an agency that's helping people who might have lost their children because of, specific substance abuse problems. We are here as counselors and social workers or whatever, and we are here to help people resolve any problems and then allow them to, let's say, be reunited back with their children again. Obviously, you can say it in different ways, but you want to think about it in ways that are positive sounding and helpful and also professional at the same time. 9, make certain that you or someone else has described payment arrangements to the client. So depending on the agency, some of them will talk about medical insurance or something like that beforehand in the waiting room. But if not, and you're paying out of pocket, or maybe it's a mandated thing, just let them know so that they're not surprised by a bill or anything like that. 10, make sure that you or someone else has explained confidentiality and the limitations of confidentiality to the individual. Be sure the client is given information on the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, also known as HIPAA. People need to know that their diagnosis may go to their state, to their insurance company. It is not necessary to go into every exception regarding confidentiality verbally, but let them know that the circumstances where they might be an emergency, information may be shared. So confidentiality is really important for your client to understand. And some people don't understand what confidentiality is. And that's why some cultures don't trust social workers, therapists, counselors, caseworkers, because they're going, why would I tell someone all my business? Then they can tell other people. So what you want to let them know is, under rules of being a professional in this field, everything that you tell me right now, I will keep it between you and me and the agency, and that's it, okay? However, there's certain places or things that if you tell me, I am going to have to report because it involves the safety of another person or yourself. So if you say something like, I want to kill myself right now, I might need to call a crisis management team. Or if you say that you beat your children, I might need to call Child Protective Services or something like that. Does that make sense? So they're aware of what can be kept as confidential and what is not going to be kept as confidential, so that they have the right to decide whether or not they're going to tell you about those things. Taking notes can be viewed by others as intrusive and negative. So for some people, they don't take notes. I personally do take notes when I am doing therapy. Some feel uncomfortable having what they say be documented. And that's true. And if they do tell you that, you need to talk to them about that. It is a right to take notes, but you need to explain what you will be doing and why. So you might let them know, I'm just going to have a notepad here, and if you bring up anything that seems interesting, or maybe if I have a question, I don't want to interrupt you, so I'm going to jot it down really quickly, and then I'm going to ask you once you're done talking so that I don't interrupt you. So again, that's showing respect for that other person, and then this is going to actually help me when I write down your notes, because I don't want to make any mistakes when I'm filling out your forms or writing your case note. You are collecting very basic information and need to make sure it is accurate is a one way to say it as well. And you can do that before you even start with the counseling session so that they know exactly what's going on. Because sometimes your client will actually look at you write and they will stop talking until you're done writing, and then they'll keep on talking again. So it's something where you can say, don't worry about me writing. I'm just jotting some notes to remind myself so I can ask you questions or whatever. Please don't feel like you need to stop or anything like that. Collecting the information. Allow people to tell their story in their own way with their own expressions, which basically means their own words. You can say something like, tell me a little bit about what brought you here today, and then just let them talk. This is an open-ended question that's really great as a starter. Or you can also say, can you tell me something about what brought you here? While listening, do not recoil in fear, gasp, and squeal with delight. So if they tell you a story, don't, if they say something about an abortion or something like that, you don't go, ooh, or anything like that with your face or anything, which is really important that I need you guys to learn to control your facial expressions, even when people are telling you like the grossest thing or the saddest thing or the most painful thing, because if you do that, what happens is then they might feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have talked about that because I feel embarrassed the way that they looked at me that way when I said that, and so that's something that you need to learn how to control as a professional. Do not tell the client how you would have felt under the same circumstances, because this is not about you, right? You're going to say, ooh, I would have ran away. No, this is still about them, and make sure that this story, this reason why they're there is all about them and not about you. If your client is from a different race, religion, culture, or have a different value system from yours, be aware of that without judging them. Okay, again, not all of us has the same value, so we need to pay attention to and respect other people's value systems. Client expectation. Can you describe how you think we might be able to help you? So that shows you like a team working experience. What are their expectations about you as the agency or part of the agency, and how you two will work together? Or tell me a little bit about the services you had in mind. So maybe they came here for a very specific reason, and you want to hear what they think it was. Can you share with me some of your ideas about services you would like from us? So it's very similar to the previous one, it's just a different way of asking. Another one is, often people do not know what services are available or what services they need. Together, you want to explore what your agency has to offer and describe alternatives to clients to consider. So maybe if they don't necessarily fit with this agency, let's talk a little bit about another agency that you work with that you trust that you can refer them to. By the end of the first interview, you and the individual need to have developed a tentative plan for services. So you need to, by the end of the first one, talk about what they're going to get out of coming to this agency for services. Social histories and forms, chapter 16, we're going to go further into that, and it's a little bit more longer, and so we'll just go to that in a little bit. Obligations and responsibilities. Help your client understand that there are expectations in the relationship. So when they come in, you're not doing all the work as the case manager or the therapist. They actually have to do the work. They have to keep appointments, call ahead if they need to cancel. Insurance cards and other papers necessary for processing their case is important. Clients and ideas are important and should be shared. And if things aren't working out, to advocate for the self. So those are things that they need to know that they need to do to make sure that everything is going smoothly. If they have any questions, you need to ask. And do you and the client have a mutual understanding of the problem? Do you both understand why that person is coming in for services? And then are you both understanding what the expectations are? What each of you guys are going to get out of this relationship? And wrapping up, at the end of the interview, make sure people know what will happen next. Give clients some information about what will happen next, such as how long it will be to take for information about a formulated plan to be created, if they will go onto a waiting list, and if so, where else can they go get help quickly if they need to. Give them a card stating the time and date of the next appointment. If there is someone who's bringing the client, that person should be aware of the next appointment as well, because they're relying on that person to come and attend the appointment. Finish with a good transition summary, which includes, so once you're done, this is something that you might want to think about, is a definition of how you both define the client's problems, right? So you can say something like, together, we've reached the understanding that this is the reason why you are here, right? And then a summary of what you and the person have concluded he or she needs, any responsibilities the client might have to accomplish before returning. So if they have to do anything specific, like get a test or get some verification or additional information, that they would do that. And you might even write it down. So if they forget or if they request it, you can do that. And then, of course, what the next steps will be in the process. And then it might be we'll begin the process of counseling, or we'll be beginning the process of introducing to the various service providers that this case manager will provide for you, that you can receive the services. The client leaves. Rise at the end of the interview to indicate that the session is complete. So you just stand up, right? It is always a good idea to walk the person back out to the waiting room, because sometimes, some offices are like a maze and it'd be confusing. You don't want to just leave them there going, oh, where am I supposed to go? You want to walk them all the way out. The doorknob syndrome, person begins to tell you something of great significance just as he is leaving. Maybe deliberate because it is painful. Remind them that they should bring the subject with therapists at the next session warmly. So what doorknob syndrome basically means is you're about to say goodbye, but then they're like, actually, there's something else I want to tell you. And that's something, although it is important, you want to listen really quickly, but say, let's bring this up the next time, because I think it sounds like it's something that we didn't discuss this time, but we can address it first thing next time, right? That's because they're feeling a little bit more comfortable because there's a time pressure, and they're like going to bring up a bunch of other things, or they really enjoy talking to you, so they just want to keep on talking to you. But you need to tell yourself that you have other clients to see. So you want to make it short and say, let's bring it up the next time that we meet. Do not allow people to leave your office if you believe they're in danger to themselves or to others. So if they are threatening to kill someone or hurt someone, you need to keep them there, and then also report it, let's say, to a crisis management team that your agency provides.